Hi there, Coach Alexa here. I wanted to follow up on last week's video about hay fever with something else that is bobbling around at this time of year that might impact our breathing, how we feel on the run, maybe give us a little bit of a sort of dry throat and a bit of a cough, and that is pollution levels. So I live and work on the outskirts of Reading, so out the back of my house is a woodland a little bit like this up in the beautiful Chiltern Hills, but out the front of my house it is very much the gravel kind of basin for the Thames Valley floodplain. So geographically, that sort of, I guess, kind of low basin in between sets of hills act as a little bit of a sort of sink well almost for pollution to get trapped. So as an example, through this week, we've had the first part of the week where the wind has been quite low, the sun has been out, so any pollution that's been created just kind of sits in this dip in geographically dip in the land that Reading and the surrounding area sits in. It's also going to be good news for the next few days because we had quite a big storm this morning and that effectively washes a lot of pollution out of the air, unfortunately straight into our waterways, which isn't quite so good, is it? And then I've noticed that pollution levels are likely to build towards the end of this week as the air gets stiller and we get that little bit more kind of still hot weather. Effectively it's a combination of the geography of this place, this kind of dip where things will just polluted air will just sit for a longer period of time and not get blown away as easily, but also the weather, particularly the amount of rain and the amount of wind, so whether it gets washed out of the air or blown away. It is worth keeping a little bit of an eye on things. I live in an area where pollution levels can get quite high because of the geography, because of the fact that I'm not too far away from Reading and Reading has awful traffic problems. And also because down the other main artery other than the Thames River that comes down the Thames Valley corridor in this area is the M4. So few different factors at play there. If you live in a city, built up areas, areas like this, where areas like I am in the southeast, where, we tend to get, more cars, more population, all of that sort of stuff, it is worth maybe just keeping an eye on the pollution levels in your area. So you can do that on the BBC weather app, for example, has little warning triangles each day, one for UV levels, one for pollen levels for hay fever, and the other one for pollution levels. So if there are no warning triangles, that means all are fine, but they'll rank them if they're medium level or above with a little warning triangle for each day. So it might give you some information to maybe plot different routes. So, if the pollution levels are quite high in my area, I will head up the hill and out more into the countryside, and I won't be doing as much running in built up areas or in the Thames Valley. When I used to live in central Reading, there was a local environmental charity that put up a few pollution monitors at key busy junctions around the town, rather alarmingly hitting about a year's worth of pollution in a matter of weeks, which is scary. But that was another thing that you could I looked at their website occasionally, you can get a bit of a sense sometimes of the weather patterns and from your breathing about what the pollution is like, but it gave me a bit of a sense of whether it was a good idea to be running right through the centre of Reading or not on a particular day. So something to just bear in mind and keep an eye out for. It's probably not going to have the same really noticeable immediate effect on a specific run as pollen levels and hay fever is doing at this time of year, but we don't really know what the long-term effects are of breathing these chemicals into our lungs. And when we run, we breathe a lot more deeply, so they'll be going right down into the bottom of our lungs, and we don't really know what the long-term impacts of all of those chemicals are. So my theory is best to avoid them where we can. Hope that's helpful.